everyone, and welcome to another wonderful Saturday channeling, and happy Winter Solstice to those of you who celebrate it. Winter Solstice is the longest night of the year. It is a time when people bring light into the darkness, whether it be through music, through story, through candlelight, or lovely lights like what's on the tree back there. And as such, I thought it was only fitting to connect with a goddess who is very much in between that dark and that light, who is the one who guides us between that dark and the light. And that goddess is, of course, none other than the wonderful Persephone. For those of you not familiar with Persephone, she is a Greek goddess, traditionally, who presides over the spring and the underworld. And she helps us with that transition between the spring of our lives through to womanhood, and then through to the wisdom years. So going through all those stages in life. She also presides over the cycles of the actual earth plane itself, and often works quite closely with Gaia. And she also helps with the internal transitions, the internal cycles that we are constantly experiencing, which have to do with releasing fears so that we can embrace the light. And not just releasing those fears and saying, oh, I'm afraid of that, so I'm going to ignore it and run away and pretend it doesn't exist. No. As a being who in stories presides over the underworld, she challenges us to not run away from our fears, but to face them. So today, I have a number of questions, both for myself and from people in my group, the Amethyst Cave, which you can find over on Facebook if you would like to join to be able to contribute questions for any future channelings that I do, or to come and join the lives that I also hold regularly there as well. So, Persephone to me, as I call her in, feels very bright, very light, very much like flowers in springtime. And she comes in very light shades of pink and gold, is kind of the coloring of what she wears, and just the coloring around her as well. But she also has this edge. She has stepped into my space, and she's standing quite strong. Very, like, shoulders straight and back straight. Like, she is ready So already, just with how she feels, there is such a sense of how stories describe her as being this transitional goddess, this goddess who's got one foot in one world and one foot in another world. So that brings me to my first question, which I want to know, Persephone, what specifically are your roles? And would you be the right person to ask for recreating a new life for ourselves? So whenever any of us are at a point where we want to recreate a new life, would you be someone to call in? Yes, she says. As you have introduced me, I am one who works in the spaces between. I bridge all different sides, different stages, different aspects. I am a bridge. I help you incarnated in your physical bodies, and I help you when you have crossed the veil to transition over there as well. I help with transitioning, with crossing spaces, with moving from one identity into another. So yes, do call upon me if you are wishing to transition, whether it is changing your whole lifestyle or just changing one part. Call me in and I can help you. I can give you the strength to make that transition. For I help you to face all those low vibrational thoughts and feelings that create the chasm that splits apart your different aspects, different parts of a cycle, different ways of being. It is only because of those lower vibrational thoughts and feelings that there is any chasm to begin with. Whether it is your 3D perceptions of time, of age, of experience, of jobs, of duties, of expectations. It is your fears, your worries, your moments in lacking of trust that causes the chasms, that causes those judgments and those fears for the process of aging, for the process of change, for facing anything that is unknown or different from your current reality. I will help you face those fears. I will help you stand in front of those fears and acknowledge them, speak to them, and tell them that you are the one in control, not those. Your fears are only in control if you let them be, if you wish them to be. And if you do not wish for your fears to control you, the first step that I can help you with is acknowledging that you have the power, not your fears. My next question for you, Persephone, is from a member of my group, wondering if you have any advice on how to start afresh. Specifically for her, and for all of us. Starting afresh begins with lining up your fears and taking time with each one to see each fear, to speak with each fear, and acknowledge the fear in a way that does not belittle it, that does not push it aside, but recognizes that it is part of your experience in this lifetime, your experiences in other lifetimes, that it is part of why you are here, why you have chosen to incarnate into a physical body, and that these fears are needed, that they were needed for you to grow and to change. For just as I say that your fears are the creators of the chasms between different stages in your life, different identities that you hold, different ages that you are, or those around you are. Without that chasm, you would not see the cycle. You would not acknowledge the cycle. You would not see the change. For all would simply be. And then she's doing a gesture just like this. All would simply be. And there would be no change. There would be no need for change. For everything just would be as it is and always had been. But you have not chosen to be in a state like that. You have chosen to grow, to develop, to learn, to rise. For each of you is ascending, and to ascend, you must go through change. There is no just being. At least, not as you are ascending. For the just being that I speak of is letting things stay the same. And so, to start afresh, you must make changes. And whether this change is cutting out people who remind you of your past self, or moving to a different house, a different city, or changing your space in some way, as well as changing your habits, your thoughts, recreating your identity by giving yourself different labels, by giving yourself different language. All of these come into play with recreating your life. And the more drastic the change that you make, the more upset, the more fear, the more worry, the more challenge that change has, the more you will change. For always faced with a great mountain to climb, you can climb it if it is the only direction you can go. And so, make your change the only direction you can go, and make yourself climb that mountain. And do not give up. Do it step by step. And so, you will tear down who you have been, what your life was, and you will put yourself into a new life, a new identity. Change sometimes takes force. It takes drastic measures. It is not an easy process. It is not a process of wandering through a meadow and plucking flowers. As goes in the stories that you have told through many, many, many of your lifetimes, and she's meaning humans as a whole. The stories you tell of me and the work that I do with each of you is simply a metaphor for what each of you may be faced with doing. Yes, some of you can change gradually, and it's slow, and you may not even realize it. But some, especially if you are in a state of frustration, need the drastic change of snatching yourself away from your current reality and putting yourself into one that is different in as many ways. In many ways. Take yourself from your spring meadow and go deep into your underworld. Go deep into that which is opposite to all that you have thought and all that you have been. And there, face the fears that arise. And tell them, you are in charge. And they have taught you what you needed. And they are no longer needed. But if they choose to come up, if they choose to arise within you, you will acknowledge them, and you will work with them. You will work with them and work alongside them until they are no longer needed. Just taking a pause now. And I've got one other question for you, Persephone, and that is about finding our purpose and repositioning ourselves in alignment to that purpose. So how can we find our purpose and put ourselves into alignment with that purpose? Realign with that purpose. Be careful, she says, with the wording you use. For finding your purpose though it has the admirable action, the charging forward, the climbing the mountain toward whatever it is that you desire, whatever it is that you want, it is only your purpose, it is only your true purpose if that action and that drive is driven by your heart, is driven by the great elation within you, the joy and the bliss of following that path. And then, and only then, if that is so, you are on your purpose. You are following your purpose, and there is no need to go find it, because you are walking toward it. You are climbing a mountain toward it. If you are following your bliss and following what is within your heart, it is, however, words to be wary of if you are focused on finding your purpose for the sake of finding your purpose. If you are doing it because you are driven by ego, by a need, by an obsession to have a path laid out for you, to have something already pre-decided, that is looking outside yourself. And yes, your purposes are within you, and they are already known, and they are already set out. But looking outside yourself with obsession, with worry about finding your purpose, with that desperation of finding your purpose, you are going from a space of ego, and you will not find your purpose. You will continue to go in circles. So, find your purpose by first following your bliss. Always follow your bliss. What brings you joy? What puts you in a state of happiness? Be it a place, a person, an activity. What is your bliss? And 2, as you follow that bliss, what fears arise? What fears come toward you and surround you as you follow that bliss? For if you were to spend all day, every day, following your bliss, following your passion, what fears arise? Go within and sit with this. Feel your bliss. Be with your bliss. And as you are, take note of the fears. Those fears then do as I have said, acknowledge them, face them. Do not send them away. Do not just kick them out. Do not pass them off. Not yet. First, work with them. Work in spite of those fears. It is the longest night of your year. And lights are on. These lights shine bright despite the night. And so too should you in your space of bliss, despite the fears. And if you do this, your fears will then leave. They will be let go. And they will be transmuted into the light. And they will not come back because you have worked with them. You have acknowledged them. And you have shown that despite those fears, you are stronger than them. You are not your fears. And so, 3. Take time to be a leader. To take a position of leadership. Whether it is just one person, or it is a group of people, or multiple groups of people. Be a leader. For it is in being a leader that each of you will be challenged further to not just hide from your fears, but to face your fears, to see them reflected in those who you lead, to hear them in those who you lead, and to be in a space where you must be powerful for the sake of others, where you must be all your best selves for the sake of others, where you must stand in your highest and best good for the highest and best good of others. And in doing this, you will begin to practice always being in your highest and best good, and you will learn what is in your highest and best good through the practice of leading for others. For being a leader is to step forward with action, not questions, is to do, is to work with others, to work with yourself, to work with fear, not against it, and not because of it. It is part of your experience here in this lifetime and in all the lifetimes when you have come into a physical embodiment. Call upon me. When you are in a space of transition, when you need the courage, you need the support to transition, to move from one stage to another and realign yourself into who you are despite the fears, be they in your mind or from experiences or both. I am here. And she's adding now, Alyssa has had an experience where she worked because of fear. But she was driven by fear. And being driven by fear is not working with fear. She wants me to explain that experience now. Story time for me. Okay, so I've talked about it quite a few times because it was a really big, just identity realigning moment, which was when I injured my wrist from playing too much piano. I had various other injuries and things going on at the time, but that was the biggest thing that just shattered my entire identity, my way of being, my entire lifestyle up until that point. And yeah, thinking about it now, whew, look at this, you guys, you're witnessing me realizing something on camera here. I was driven to finishing the performer certification that I was working toward while I was doing other university courses and stuff, because I was afraid of not being good enough. I was afraid that if I didn't go and I didn't get that certification, that I wasn't going to be worth anything, that I was going to be the opposite of that, and that I'd be meaningless, essentially. Which is totally not true, but whew, okay, that's where my headspace was back then. And so there I was, practicing. I practiced 6-7 hours a day, sometimes straight through, and just was driven with, I have to get this right, I have to get this perfect, and I'd drill things over and over and lose all sense of time and everything. I'm just so obsessed and focused on it. And then Spirit intervened and caused a whole domino effect of things that happened, including the wrist injury that halted all of that stuff, halted me in my tracks. And I then spent a year or so after that both healing the wrist injury as well as continually trying to get back into that state. I was trying to continue being like that. I was like, no, I have to do this, I need to go back. That was just a upset. I can go back and I can do it, I know I can. And I was so obsessed. But I was working basically against the fear of, I'm not good enough. If I don't do this, I'm not good enough. Instead of acknowledging I wasn't trying to achieve that particular performer certification, that final level in piano, because I wanted to, because it was my dream, it was my bliss. I was doing it because I thought if I didn't, I'd be worthless. And it took then me finally just getting really frustrated with this circle that I was stuck in of having to fight against a wrist that wasn't letting me play to the same level that I had used to be able to play, and just, that wall of that fear that was underlining everything that I didn't even realize was there until, well, I'm really noticing it now, but it took me a couple years of saying, okay, I have to totally ignore the piano. I can't touch the piano. And it was painful. It hurt to tell myself, okay, Alyssa, you can't touch the piano. You're not going to play the piano anymore. You're just going to ignore it. And it was kind of like breaking up with a partner and telling that partner, sorry, but I love you dearly, and yet you're not good for me right now, so we can't be together. It was so painful and really, really hard to tell that to my piano and just ignore it. And every time I'd hear piano music or I'd be at a concert where there was piano playing, I had so much pain in my heart. And finally, through also going and doing a lot of traveling and just getting myself out into different environments, putting myself in different locations and having different experiences, and also exploring friendships with people who were not related to the music world. They were people who were passionate about art, or people who were passionate about games and writing and all sorts of other fields. And I made them my identity. I took on their identities for myself and started then finding myself coming back around, where after I'd spent those years traveling, having different experiences, putting myself in a different environment, a different location, and not touching a piano and just ignoring the piano, keeping it out of my life, I started coming back to it and having this desire within me to sit down and try it again. And at first it was just like retrying a couple songs here and there that were the ones that I'd originally been playing those years ago. And then it turned into me tuning into myself. I listened to myself and I started composing. And that was the start to the music that I play now, where I tune into spirits, and I'll tune into Gaia or Archangel Michael or to Athena, and I'll take their energy, I'll take a message they have, and it'll come out through my piano music. And I didn't get to that state, which is an absolute state of bliss and joy, and is honestly my favorite thing to do. Unless I had told the piano, you know what? You're painful for me right now. You're hurting me right now. I can't touch you. I can't be around you. I can't do this. And it was through that I was able to find, okay, this is the kernel that had me love piano when I was that little 7-year-old first starting it. The kernel was using music as a way to tap into myself, my emotions, and spirit that is all around us, the energy that is all around us. And I tapped into it via the music. That was my bliss and joy. That connection was the bliss and joy. And I've since also realized that for me, my bliss and my joy is being able to connect with people and to make connections with people and have these moments of, whoa, we're on the same wavelength here, and we're able to support each other and help each other and grow with each other and just experience with each other. And that has shown itself through a lot of different things that I've done that have both been very 3D reality based in terms of jobs, and now the work that I do as a medium. Whew. Persephone was just saying that I've done well. She says, "You've done well, dear one. You've done well." Thank you. Thank you, Persephone. And I've just asked her if she has anything else she wishes to say today herself beyond the questions that I and members of my group had. And she says, no, that is all. So, with that, that's given me a lot to mull over myself. So, for a last little bit from myself to all of you, since it is Winter Solstice, whether or not you celebrate it, take some time today to sit down and write in your journal. And it can just be total free write, and you may find yourself just wandering through what you've been experiencing today or through the past week. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be sitting down and exploring who I've been over the past year, over this past decade, and pinpoint some of those fears and things that I've done, and how was I driven by some of those experiences. So just journal for your winter solstice is a great way to release and to reflect. No matter what you choose to reflect on or where you end up going with your journaling, it is a fantastic tool that's nice and grounding and physical for starting to work on some of the things that Persephone was just talking about today. So with that, I wish all of you a happy winter solstice and a wonderful, wonderful rest of this year.